Hi everyone, welcome to Captioning live streaming video with Falcon. I'm Dave Watts, Marketing Manager for EEG, and with me I have Spencer Alt, one of our talented software engineers who will be taking us through the simple process here shortly and showing us how Falcon is used. So to get started, I just want to give you all a quick introduction to Falcon, explain who it's for, and explain its role in the live web stream workflow. So to put it simply, Falcon is a vehicle that intercepts caption data from Icap and points those captions to a specified live web stream link. So it's just a way for Icap to talk to streaming services without the involvement of hardware. So think of it as the glue that is bridging Icap to your web stream. So if you are a content producer needing to procure captions for a web stream that you're planning, you would use the Falcon setup I am about to show you to create a direct link between your caption service provider and your live stream. So you just provide Falcon with the details of your stream to create what's called an access code that your caption service provider will then use to send captions to your stream. Now, captioners that are familiar with the Icap software, which I'm pretty sure most of you are that are on this call, you know that access codes are used in Icap to specify where the captions are being routed. So Falcon simply allows its users to create a new access code on demand that is directly linked to a designated web stream event. So that captioners can send captions to a client's live web stream simply by using that access code in Icap. So essentially, caption service providers can use Falcon to create an access code for a client web stream and then use that access code they've created to then service their client's event via Icap. So Falcon is an affordable, on-demand, and much more flexible alternative to renting a physical hardware encoder from EEG, especially if you're doing it for a one-time event that is only being streamed. Before Falcon, those needing captions for a web stream had to procure a physical hardware encoder for us from us and fill out the rental paperwork far ahead of time, spend possibly hundreds of dollars, and then also spend significant time and effort setting up and testing the equipment, usually with the help of our support team just for one event that was being streamed. So Falcon takes all of those complications out of the picture by being entirely cloud-based, available anytime on our cloud services website, and by offering affordable usage-based pricing. Falcon is the perfect solution for stream-only events, for instance, a live e-learning class or a corporate event, or even a sporting event. Anytime streaming is the main method of distribution for your video, Falcon is going to be the go-to. It can still be beneficial to use a physical hardware encoder in instances where you plan to send your stream to television or record to video in addition to the live web stream. So if you're just doing streaming only, Falcon is going to be what you're going to want to use. It's going to be a much more easy to set up and affordable option. The setup for creating a Falcon instance is super simple. It's basically that form that you're looking at is really all it requires to set up your access code. So whether this is being completed by the end user or the captioner, it really only requires essential details about the stream that's being captioned so that Falcon knows where to route the captions. Mainly, it requires you to specify the caption service provider who's servicing the event. It asks you to specify the streaming service being used, so let's say YouTube, Wowza, or whoever you're using. And then it requires you to make up an access code for your event. It can be anything you want. Again, this is going to be what the captioner needs to connect from their Icap software to your stream to provide those captions. And then it asks you to paste the URL of your stream so that Falcon can send captions to it also, because that's how it's going to know where to send those captions at all. So once you hit that create button, the rest is done on the captioner side. So on the caption service provider end, The captioner is going to simply use the access code that was created in Falcon and enter it into their Icap software, and then they just provide captions as they normally do in any situation where they're using Icap. Falcon will just be routing these captions behind the scenes into the live web stream that's linked to the access code that was created. Let's take a look at this flow diagram for a big picture overview of the streaming process so we can understand Falcon's place in the whole scenario. So let's say we've already created an access code with Falcon and provided it to the captioner who's servicing our event, and they now have the ability to access the stream and provide captions from their Icap software. So we've done all the setup necessary with Falcon to provide that access code. Now, starting with the video camera that's there in the bottom left, we must send our live material directly through a streaming media encoder that you would have on site where the event is, and that would be pointed at a streaming video service of your choice. So, again, whether you're using YouTube or Wowza or UVault or whatever you decide, that's going to be your actual live stream. Now, happening simultaneously, the captioner is going to be providing captions to this stream from their Icap software by using the Falcon access code that we provided them in the beginning. So your stream and the live captions meet at the video streaming server and are then passed down to the end viewer. So they kind of connect at that point right there. So that's how Falcon works broken down, but now I'm actually going to shoot it over to Spencer, who is going to take us through a live setup, show us a Falcon stream in live action. And so without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Spencer and then let him drive for a little bit.
Cool. Thanks again for attending, everyone. My name is Spencer. I'm an engineer here at EEG, and now that you know a bit about how Falcon works, I'll walk you through how to get started and set it up. Before we dive right in, if anyone has any questions, they can feel free to type them into the chat section of their webinar client, and we'll have some time to address those at the end. So, live streaming video over the web. Like Dave mentioned, there's really three major parts to getting set up with that. Number one is the video source. Number two is the streaming server or platform. And number three is the web player that you're using to show your media to your end users. So for this demonstration today, for the video source, I'm using Flash Media Live Encoder. I've got that set up on a computer here in the office. And here's just a picture of some of the configuration for that. So you can see here, I'm entering a URL to send my streaming content to. This IP address is the URL for a Wowza server where my video stream is going to be sent to. I'm also entering in some stream credentials, a stream ID and a stream password that'll be used to associate my video with the streaming server. So that's number one. That's my streaming video source. My server, I'm using Wowza, and for my player, I'm using JW Player, like you can see here. But really, any web video player that's capable of decoding captions would work for this process. So as you can see, I've got streaming video here in my browser, live streaming video, but I don't have captions. So that's really where Falcon comes in. So to get started with Falcon, you need to point your browser at eegcloud.tv. That's the site where we host all of our web cloud services. And go ahead and click the Falcon Stream service to get started with that. So on this page, I would see if I have any active Falcon streams running. I do not, so I'm going to go ahead and click the New Caption Stream button to get started with a new one. So like Dave showed before, this is the main form where we're configuring our Falcon virtual encoder. There's really two sections, a streaming service configuration and an Icap configuration. So in the streaming service configuration, I'm going to use Wowza, like I said. This is also compatible with UVault and YouTube, and we're looking to add support for other streaming platforms, but I'm going to use Wowza. Stream ID and stream password I specified when I set up Flash Media Live Encoder, so I'm going to enter those now. And the post URL, you might also see this in your streaming service documentation as a caption ingest URL. This is what's going to be used to associate captions with your video stream. and that can usually be found in your documentation. You'll notice that the IP address is the same as the Wowza server where I pointed my Flash Media Live encoder. So that's all the streaming service configuration. Let's take a look at the Icap configuration. You can choose any number of caption providers, but this is going to determine which company gets access to my Falcon encoder. I'm going to choose our own test company. And the access code is, an easy to remember phrase that you generate and pass off to your captioner to allow them to connect to your Falcon stream. This additional Icap settings has to do with how audio gets sent to your captioner. Falcon doesn't impose any restriction on how audio gets sent. It doesn't send audio by default. It works with any number of workflows from having your captioner there at your live event to having a captioner follow along with the stream or using some kind of phone coupler. If you elect to send your audio through Icap, you can go ahead and enter the username of your Icap audio source, but to keep things simple, I won't be doing that. So that's all the configuration to get started with Falcon. I can go ahead and press this create button, and that's going to start up my Falcon virtual encoder. As you can see, it's being allocated now, and the access code is Falcon Webinar Test. This page is just going to basically show me some basic stream status. It's going to tell me right now my stream's initializing. This is going to change to running when the stream is set up, and it's going to have some Icap status information in this box. But for now, let's plug this access code into my Icap client. So there you have it. We're connected with Icap, and we have this nice informative test message saying that our Icap connection is ready. So now I'm ready to go ahead and shoot captions to it. The video stream is still running, but as you can see, there are no captions. To send captions, I'm actually going to use one of our own tools, the Icap VC client. It's capable of sending captions over Icap, using transcription software or voice recognition, or in this case, I'm going to load the captions from a file. So you can see that the captions quickly appear in this Icap box right over here. And soon after, they appear here in the Falcon video stream. So you can see that our end user would now be seeing these captions. So yeah, that's how to send captions through Falcon to a live video stream. That's it. Configuration's pretty easy to set up. When I'm finished with my stream, I can go ahead and click this Terminate Stream button, and it'll deallocate the Falcon encoder. So now that you guys know how to set up Falcon, how to get started, let's talk a little bit about billing with Falcon. So the billing for Falcon is done on a purely usage basis. You're only going to pay for what you use. It's pay as you go. We priced it at $15 per hour of live captioning, with an additional $9 charge for each day when you had a Falcon encoder allocated but were not using it. The reason why we priced it like that is we didn't want you guys to feel like you were kind of scrambling to set these up at the last minute. If you have a live event a couple of days from now and you want to get started with an encoder to do some testing, that's perfectly fine. You'll only be charged $9 for the days when it wasn't active. So yeah, you can, if you want to get started using Falcon, you can go ahead and go to eegcloud.tv, go to the subscription section, and click this new subscription button. Just choose Falcon, and if you want to pay with a credit card, you can do it all by yourself right here, and you would just choose your payment method below. If you don't want to use a credit card, if you prefer to do business with a PO or prepay in advance, just contact our sales staff, and they can definitely accommodate any kind of concerns that you have. So that's it with this live demonstration of Falcon. At this point, I'm going to pass things back to Dave, and we'll have time to address some of your questions after he wraps it up a bit.
All right, thanks Spencer. Let's see here, back to the presentation. Okay, so what we just saw there is video that we sent through our own streaming media software pointed to JW Player. It's pretty simple. While at the same time we use the Falcon access code we created to send those captions to our stream via the Icap software. And the end result is a perfectly captioned live web stream. So that's it. It's available. Falcon's available at eegcloud.tv. Really, it's as simple as creating a Falcon access code for your stream, providing the access code and the audio to your captioner. And once you've done that, Falcon routes all the caption data from your caption service provider to your web stream. And it's really as simple as that. I want to thank everybody for joining today. I just wanted to mention really quickly, if you have any questions, just feel free to put them in the chat window there. And it looks like we have a couple coming in already here. Let me see what we've got here. All right, so we have a couple people asking questions here. A couple of these are people not seeing slides in the beginning. I apologize for that. Let's see. All right, so Kevin wants to know, he says, I am a broadcaster, not a captioner, so I'm not sure what exactly Icap is. Is that an alternative to Mac Caption or other captioning software programs? Can you also control the position of the captions with Falcon to make sure that we are FCC compliant? Bill, are you on?
Yeah. Would you like me to take that?
Yeah, sure, that'd be great.
Sure. So Bill McLaughlin here from EEG, and Falcon is basically going to take the captions, from a caption generation software and get them onto a web stream, and so that's pretty similar to the way it would work. With a video signal. Icap is basically, for live broadcast, a very commonly used network that's, in EEG's 491s and other products that captioners will use to send their real-time data from their captioning software, where they control things like the positioning, and to get that onto the live TV broadcast. And Falcon extends the power of that onto a web stream. So in a detailed sense, some players on the web have limited control over the positioning, more limited than what you'd see on television. But on the other hand, the captioner running through Icap and running through Falcon does have the ability to control the positioning, at least to the degree allowed by the player that's at the other end. As far as Mac Caption goes, that's a sort of a post-production caption editing software for pre-recorded files, and that's kind of similar to our Scribe product. So Falcon and Icap are both more for a real-time use case.
All right. We have a bunch of questions here. So Eric wants to know, he says, there seemed to be some delay from when the script sent and was started until the captions appeared. What is the expected latency? And similarly, if you use Icap for audio, what is the delay from live audio until it hits the captioner's Icap client?
Spence, you want to address that? You want me to go?
Yeah, why don't you take that, Bill?
The Icap delay audio-wise is going to vary a little bit depending on the network connection. Typically, a number would be between about 150 milliseconds and 500 milliseconds, or half a second. So typically, your full delay doing real-time captions on TV is going to be about 3 to 4 seconds as a complete end-to-end delay, and mostly that's actually the ability of a transcriber to really process the information, understand it well enough to start getting it into their equipment, and for the equipment, whether that's stenography or voice recognition, to actually start to make a coherent sentence out of that, or coherent phonetic sounds into the correctly spelled words to get that out. So your live TV delay is maybe in the 3 or 4 seconds range if you're not using a matching thing like, say, CC Match. Now, on your web stream, your delay could be less than that in some cases, because if Dave wants to bring up that diagram quick, I could probably explain this a little bit. But your web video encoder or compression engine is going to actually, what's labeled as the streaming media encoder here, is going to add some video compression delay on the way to your web users. And since that's happening in parallel to the closed caption delivery, it actually is subtractive from the caption delivery. So potentially, if the captioner is captioning with, say, 4 seconds behind, when an initial speaker said something at your event, and the video compression delay is, say, 2 to 3 seconds, then what the viewer would see is something like 1 to 2 seconds of delay between the speech and the caption. So, it depends on a number of factors, but actually has the potential to relatively easy actually be more time accurate than a typical television captioning.
Excellent. Becky asks if this is available now, which yes it is, and she also wants to know what live formats can it go to.
I see Spencer wondering at me too. I guess by live formats, I'm not totally sure what the question's asking. I mean, the selection of different servers that are part of the Falcon form that Dave showed kind of show different software programs that are used for hosting streaming events, and different software programs that have interfaces that we've built into Falcon and that are compatible. So really a customer, if the end broadcast customer or the end content owner who's controlling the stream is using one of those softwares or services, you'd be able to deliver the captions to them. If they're using a different software or service, you would have to work with them potentially. Feel free to get EEG support or engineering involved. You'd have to work to see whether some different hosting service or software platform had an ability to take in live captioning, and how you would access that.
Okay, well, she wants to know, she said particularly she's looking at live stream, and somebody else asked about live stream as well in here. So can you speak specifically to that, Bill?
To the best of my understanding, and I'd be happy to if anybody has reps from there that they know that they'd like to put in touch in any way, I'd be happy to do that after we wrap here. But with live stream, I believe they do take captioning if it's uploaded as part of the video signal, meaning something more like a traditional hardware setup where you encode captions with a hardware encoder. The live captioner writes over Icap to the hardware encoder. The hardware encoder embeds the captions in the VaNC space in SDI video, and then SDI video is fed into a streaming encoder, some of which can keep the captions and uplink them with the video. And I think live stream, and a lot of, they're not the only platform that has this kind of characteristic, but they're able to take captions, as far as I know, if they're embedded in the video, but I don't know of a way to get captions in there separately from the video.
Okay. Becky, does that, okay, let's see. Placement. Is the placement limited to the setting in the EEG setup window, or can a captioner override that? So you want to know if you have placement control there?
Sometimes it depends. That depends on the player that a viewer's watching through and the streaming service. It is fairly common for live captions in a lot of players today that actually you only can do bottom captioning for live events on a lot of web players today. That's not universally true, but it's often true. The best thing to do is to use the positioning in the caption creation software. If you're using something like Icap VC, but also commonly the Eclipse tools, the Stenograph BCS tools, and those have full positioning control. And what you can do is position the way you would if you were doing a broadcast, and then at that point the Falcon and the streaming server will probably do the best they're capable of preserving your original intent to the end user. And if there are limitations in that, you might wind up seeing things just appear at the bottom.
Okay. Kevin says he wants to know what exactly ICAP is, and is it an alternative to Mac Caption? And can you
Didn't we cover that one?
Yeah, we did. Kevin, if it's all right, I'll reach out to you after this session, and I can get you some information on all of that stuff. No, this was a different question. All right, so Mark wants to know what is an audio username and how would the audio get set up through ICAP?
The audio username can be used in a couple of ways. What that's designed for is if you want to send events audio from the venue to a captioner directly over ICAP. We provide for use with Falcon. We can send a little Windows app for that is an audio provider for use with Falcon, and it runs on a PC. And you can put a just a standard mic into your PC, get some audio from out of the mixer that's being used for the event, and it will uplink that to ICAP. And then that has a specific ICAP username, the way a hardware encoder would have a specific ICAP username, and that username can be associated with the Falcon code, and that way you can use ICAP for audio delivery from the event. Now, that's one of your options for getting audio delivery. It's not your only option. Also, for example, clearly the captioner could watch the consumer stream for the audio, especially if it's not heavily delayed. You can also use something like a telephone coupler or an IP audio sender, something like one of those barracks converters is pretty commonly used. So you have some options in terms of how the audio is going to be delivered depending on what equipment is available on site at the event, what's giving the captioner acceptable quality for a given situation.
Okay. Let's see, Karen wants to know if, she says, if I want to provide real-time captioning for a sports team doing post-game interviews, can I use Falcon now and they do not need an encoder?
Yeah, I think that would be a perfect use case for this. I mean, Falcon is designed for use without a physical hardware encoder.
Well, I think actually the most important thing wasn't addressed specifically in the question would be that Spencer's answer assumes that the interview show is a streamed program and is being distributed over the web. If the program is being distributed, over regular broadcast television or cable television, you would need the physical encoder to embed captions in the SDI video to get it out for television transmission. So really, Falcon is something that addresses a problem and allows you not to use the physical encoder in a place where you don't need to encode any captions locally to the broadcaster site or the event site, and what you're just looking to do is broadcast captions direct to a web streaming event. If the broadcaster needs captions locally for traditional TV transmission, or for example, putting them on a jumbotron or something like that at a stadium, those are applications where you're still going to need to get those captions embedded into the SDI video, which means you can send the captions over ICAP to a hardware unit. But if you don't have that hardware unit on site, you're not going to have embedded captions, which you're going to need for television.
Okay, Karen said specifically a team that is running the post-game interviews directly to the internet. So in that case, if it is just streaming only, then you would use Falcon. That would be a perfect use case for that.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Nancy says, I'm a captioner. What if the main distribution is television broadcast and secondarily streamed to the web?
The EEG Falcon can be used in combination with that, especially if it's a non-EEG encoder being used. If it's an EEG encoder being used, actually the broadcaster, if they have a 490, a 491 encoder, can basically access functionality similar to Falcon for uplinking these captions directly from their hardware unit. So then that's a third option, basically, that if they do have the hardware unit and they're going to need that for television, the streaming module on that hardware unit can be set up to basically always send to the streaming site as well. And in some cases, it's not needed to, again, send the captions separately from the video, as shown in Dave's diagram, which is still up, because in some cases, if you have the hardware unit and you're embedding the captions with the video, then you may have a streaming encoder that's able to uplink them both together to the video streaming server. So, the kind of the basic questions to ask in that situation will be sort of, what streaming encoder are you using, and can it put the captions directly into the stream?
This is a non-EEG encoder.
Yeah, so the non-EEG encoder probably does not have a feature like that. So in that case, you could basically, create an Icap access code could be created that includes both your broadcaster's encoder, their main physical encoder, and also, they could create a Falcon encoder and latch that on to the access code, and they would both receive the same data. You would get the audio from the physical encoder, and, that way both the stream and the regular broadcast would be fed.
Okay. Now, Karen Franco wants to know, what about in-stadium to mobile devices? Can Falcon be used to send a stream to our Icap mobile system? I'm assuming that's what she's talking about. Can that be worked in that? Can that be used in that way, though?
Well, the Icap mobile, or also known as Caption cast system, that's a separate system that's fed through Icap, so it can be addressed in the same way as Falcon. You can use them together, you can use them separately. They're sort of both fed through Icap in the same way. The Icap mobile system requires a license purchase, like sort of from the stadium, with an estimate of the number of users. So it is a separate product, but I mean, from the transcriber viewpoint, you'd really interact with them the same way.
And does that go for sending captions to a Dectronics board in a stadium? For example, like, is the encoder needed for that, or can Falcon be used for that?
Typically, you would need an encoder for that, yeah, because the thing about Falcon is the benefit is that it's a cloud program, so it's self-service. You can go on at any time and just request one, put in your information and get it going. You're not responsible for physically hosting it or physically setting it up or anything like that, but then on the other hand, a cloud application isn't local within your stadium or event hall. So if you have something like a scoreboard that is local to that event hall, you're going to need local equipment there that's able to talk to it, because then Falcon, being in the cloud, is not going to be able to communicate back to a video board that's inside the stadium and inside the stadium's firewall. Okay.
Roman wants to know, he says, we already have an EEG encoder on site and contract out captioning to a captioner using Icap, which we embed into our current broadcast signal. How would we leverage this using Falcon to get the same captioning stream over and into our live stream encoder? Okay, so we're talking about live stream again.
Yeah, and I would need to check in a little more offline, really, about the precise capabilities of what's in the live stream encoder. Typically, if the live stream encoder, if it's a hardware encoder that sort of is like a standalone box, has its own software, takes in SDI video, and then streams out. Most of those support captioning really out of the box with no extra issues. So hopefully theirs would do that, although I can't specifically promise that because I haven't seen the product. But most of them do that. A bigger issue is if you're using the type of streaming encoder that runs on a standard PC and uses, something like a capture card from a third party, like say like a Blackmagic card or an AJA card, and most of those systems do not pass captioning. So if you were using one of those systems, typically the choice is either to upgrade to a dedicated hardware system that can handle captioning with the video stream, or else to change server and hosting vendors to a vendor that would be able to accept the live captions as a separate stream, like through Falcon. If you're sort of locked into a vendor that doesn't take the text separately, and you're also locked into a streaming encoder that doesn't take the captions, then I would say we probably need to push on that vendor, because they're not, in that case, really giving you either of the tools you would need to solve the problem, unfortunately. But hopefully that isn't the case.
Okay, Deanna says, she asks, are the captions preserved for replay of the video after the live event, or does the captioning company still need to provide a file for upload for replay of video? So I'm assuming she wants to know if we're capturing the caption data here.
Yeah, it is possible to capture the caption data through Icap on the EEG cloud, like Spencer showed. There is a additional feature for that applies to Falcon and also to Icap if you're on the Broadcast Plus level, for archiving of as runs of the caption data sent, and being able to say, like, download that as an SCC file that has the captions and the times, and then is editable or uploadable to a video on demand style non-live website. It also depends on the server software, because that's one option, and that will always work. But actually, in many cases, the video hosting provider is also recording your live content, and basically, it's at that point, it's sort of like they have a full tape that does include the original captions, and so video hosting services a lot of times would be able to provide that for you with with really no extra labor needed.
Okay. Hope that answered your question. There's a couple people that asked if this session is going to be available afterward, and the answer to that is yes. It's being recorded, and I will get everybody a copy who's interested, so that you can review. So you will definitely get a copy of this. Let's see here. We've got a bunch of other questions. I think we'll finish this up in 5 minutes. We're just going to answer a couple questions, a couple more questions, and anybody else I can reach out to afterward and get your questions answered. So let's see here. So Karen Franco asked a similar question. After sending live captions to one of these platforms, is there a way to save the captions to the video for future use?
Yeah, and similar, I think without talking about the specifics of which hosting platform, I'd probably just kind of give, be able to give the same answer to that, which is a little bit general. But most of the video, a software like Wowza or a hosting platform that's more full service, like a YouTube live event or UVault, typically there are options within that software to record the whole thing, captions included, and be playing that back. But if for any reason you say you want to do a fix-up on that and upload fresh captions that are better timed or more accurate, the transcriber would probably, have the option, potentially the files are saved from the software that you're using to transcribe. Also, you'd be able to access those files from the Icap Archives program on EEG Cloud after the Falcon session.
Okay. Eric says, public IP addresses are rare finds at remote event locations. What protocol is being used from the media encoder on-site to the Falcon server? Could there be on-site firewall issues?
That's an interesting question, and I mean, yes, there can be firewall issues, and that's definitely something that has to be dealt with on a site-by-site basis. The media encoder does not actually need to communicate directly with Falcon. If you look at the diagram, the media encoder really needs to communicate with the video server in question, and it is an outbound connection, which generally helps significantly with firewall issues. It's an outbound connection, and it's typically, this can depend, but many of these protocols, they'll wrap them in something common like HTTP, which is much less likely in general to be blocked by a firewall. So I would say typically if you have an ability to stream video to a web server at all from a location, then you're not going to have an additional problem using Falcon in that situation. We put Icap encoders, physical ones for rental, in venues all the time, and usually it's pretty smooth. Other times there can be very locked down network, and it certainly is good to get a feeling if you've never been in a certain place before and you're getting the encoder rented and sent there. Try to get the best answer you can ahead of time about what the situation is going to be. There's definitely no reason you need a public IP address to use it, but you do need to be allowed out of the network by whatever firewalls are in the way. So that can definitely vary from site to site. It's a good thing to be thinking about.
Okay, we have two more questions here. Jason wants to know, how long of a delay does the viewer experience with the captions? YouTube is currently delayed in Icap from his experience, so he wants to know how much of a delay we would be experiencing here.
YouTube live events, in my experience, have a very significant delay, but that video that delay is both video and caption. Meaning that basically from the time, if you're at a live event and you're watching it on YouTube, I mean, it's pretty common to see 15 seconds or 30 seconds of delay on that stream watching it on the network. And that's, it's some events it makes a difference, some events it doesn't really make a difference. The captions should really be relatively well tuned with the speech that they're representing, though. So, I mean, it's kind of, I think we've had pretty good experience with that, looking at just, a couple of seconds. So two different issues really is what's the delay absolutely of the video from the live event, and then what's the delay from the video speech to the captions. And as we covered in an earlier question, the caption text through Falcon actually has the power to often be less delayed than the same captions would be over traditional TV, because that video compression is outside of the captioning loop.
Okay, and Mark wants to know, is it possible to control the delay in Falcon?
There's not a setting for that in the initial implementation. It is a good question, and that's something that might be added in the future if we see an ability to control that. I mean, you wouldn't really be able to delay the captions less, because what it's already doing is delaying them as little as possible. But in some cases, if you had a very long video compression delay, it actually could become desirable to delay the captions more, unless they became early, actually, which is not a situation that we've really seen in any of our testing, but it's theoretically possible if you use a video encoder that introduces a lot of delay. And in that case, probably that would just be another setting that would be entered when you started up the stream.
Okay. That seems to be about it for questions. There are a couple people that requested information on Icap as well as some other things. I will go through those and get those people the information they requested. Does anybody else have any more questions? It seems like that that kind of slowed down. So if anybody has any questions afterward, or if they think of anything else, you can either reach out to myself, or if you have a question for Spencer, our email addresses are right there, and we'll get you what you need. Other than that, everybody have a great day, and I really appreciate everybody's participation, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.